1.7 is on multiplying and dividing integers. Now you may notice that on my screen I wrote a little reminder up here that you should be taking notes on each of these video lessons. That way you'll have something that you can refer back to as you're working your problems out, and you'll have some examples that you can look off of. All right, now the good thing about multiplying and dividing integers is that the rules for their signs are the same. If you have, we're talking about two at a time now, if you have two integers that you're either multiplying or dividing, the product or quotient of two integers, if they have the same sign, your answer is going to be positive. The product or quotient of two integers with different signs is going to be negative. So you'll notice I underlined and underlined, same sign positive, different signs negative. I'm talking about two integers at one time. Some of the weird stuff happens with zero. The product of any number in zero is, of course, zero. You've known that one since probably third or fourth grade. It's actually called the zero multiplication property of zero, but that's not something we're going to stress right now. Just remember, when you multiply zero times the number, you get zero. Now, the two things that can happen with dividing: if you divide by zero, bad things will occur. It is undefined. You cannot divide by zero. If they have that as a problem, it's probably a mistake. You'll just write down the word undefined. Undefined, of course, means there's no definition because there's no meaning. Now, on the other hand, if you divide into zero, the quotient of zero and any non-zero number is, of course, zero. 0 divided by 5, 0 divided by 10, 0 divided by a million is always the same. It's always 0. And if you end up with 0 divided by 0, you're in the wrong class. You're in a calculus class. All right, now here's lots of examples, and I'm going to run through these here quickly. Notice in the first example, I'm multiplying two numbers with the same sign. They're both negative numbers. That means, of course, that my answer is positive. And 8 times 13 is 104. If you can see that, I'll circle that for you. Here I'm multiplying two numbers. One's positive, one's negative. It doesn't matter which one has the greater absolute value, like it does with addition. Different signs. My answer is negative. 7 times 12 is 84, so this is negative 84. Here's a quick example. I'm multiplying something times 0, and of course that's going to be 0. Now the last example in that first row there says negative 6 times negative 3 times negative 2. I'm multiplying more than two numbers. Now this is for two numbers at a time. Here I'm multiplying three numbers. So you can do it from left to right, multiply these, get your answer, and then multiply it times that. But one nice little shortcut that you can use here is that when you're multiplying more than two numbers, count up how many of the factors, how many of the numbers that you're multiplying are negative. If you have an even number, your answer is going to be positive. If you have an odd number of negative factors, your answer is going to be negative. I have 1, 2, 3 negative factors. 3 is an odd number. My answer is going to be negative. And then 6 times 3 is 18. 18 times 2 is 36. You'll get the same answer if you're more methodical. Negative 18 times negative 3 is a positive, negative 6 times negative 3 is a positive 18, and a positive 18 times a negative 2 is a negative 36. Now some division problems. Here I'm dividing two numbers, one's negative, one's positive, so again the signs are different. My answer is negative, and of course 4 goes into 36 9 times, so it's negative 9. Here I have a division, even though it's not written with the division symbol, it's written as a fraction, but we know that that implies division. Numerator divided by denominator. They have the same sign. My answer is going to be positive 5, because 8 goes into 45 times. Now here are two separate problems involving 0, and they're quite a bit different in their answers. In this first one, I actually get an answer because you can divide into 0. 0 divided by negative 6 is 0. 0 divided by any non-zero number, this one right here. But if I'm dividing by 0, this is when bad things happen. We write down undefined. Don't leave it blank. If you leave it blank, I'm going to guess that you don't understand what that means. So you want to put that answer down. Now here's one with 3 numbers, and the rules work the same. You can count up how many of the numbers, how many of these values here are negative. I have 2 negative, an even number of negatives. So my answer should be positive, and now it's just a matter of going left to right. 120 divided by 4 is 30. 30 divided by 5 is 6. And it's a positive 6 because I have an even number of negatives in this expression. And again, go left to right, you can work it that way. Now, this last example has to do with something called a mean. And we're going to go into this in more detail, but everybody knows what a mean is. They just don't always know it by the name mean. A mean is the same as an average. And to find the average of numbers, you add up the numbers and divide by how many numbers there are. So I have -5, -9, -2, and -8. I'm going to add those numbers up. Now I'm adding up 4 negatives. And we remember when we're adding negatives, we get a negative. 5 and 9 and 2 and 8. I'm going to add all these up. I know it's going to be negative. 5 and 9 is 14, and 2 is 16, and 8 more is 24. So they'll add up to -24. 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers. I'm going to divide by a positive 4. Negative divided by a positive is negative, and 4 goes in 6 times, and that's my average or my mean. This is statistical data. All right, now, with this, we've pretty much come to a point where we have reviewed adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing integers, sign numbers. You've got to get those rules down. They're going to be on the proficiency test. They're going to be in the assignments. They're going to be on the test. Practice, practice, practice.